Like when I can come in and work with your companies, I know that I'm working with a team of professionals that's going to figure out a way to take action on the stuff that we're training. It's the other guys that are the struggle, right? Those are the people that think, bring DeRosa in, he's going to fix everything. There's no easy button. You can train somebody how to do something, but at the end of the day, somebody on the other side of the door, other side of that training room has got to hold people accountable to actually taking advantage of the stuff that they were trained to do and making sure that they're doing it at a sustainable and acceptable level.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, Service Titan and Rilla, our technology of choice to helping us scale and grow our business and making sure all of our viewers have the technology to scale their business so when they want to sell it, they're able to. Welcome to the Roofing CEO Playbook Podcast. Build it to sell it. We're here to cut through the noise, all the rhetoric, to show you how to build your roofing business, make it profitable, where you make a boat ton of money, and the cherry on top, when you're ready to sell, you can sell to a private equity firm and change your family's life. I'm sitting here with John DeRosa from SRS, their sales trainer. He goes all around the country, helps people learn how to sell, coaches them, SRS people, and also roofers. That's right, contractors. He comes into your company like he's come into mine multiple times and helped us achieve our sales goals, our growth, that we're able to sell now 2 companies to private equity firms with his help right here. John DeRosa, one of the best sales trainers you'll ever meet. The real deal. Thank you, John, for coming in.
Thank you.
John, why don't you tell everybody who you are and your background real fast?
Yeah, John DeRosa. I work for SRS Distribution. I've been there for about 10 years now. Did some tours of duty with window side of the industry, also the shingle manufacturing side. Always just kind of been a student of sales and selling. And, years ago, I was kind of presented with a challenge with some of my customers and thought that maybe I could help them in that area. And that it's all kind of taken on a life of its own.
I mean, you got a big personality. You love sales training. Can you talk about why sales is so important and why training salespeople is so important? I think people think either you can sell or you cannot sell. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I don't think that sales is something that people, it's an either you can or you can't type of proposition. I think sales is nothing more than a recipe. It's a series of steps that you provide people and they learn how to execute those steps. And that's if they do those things and they do them well and they do them consistently, they're going to have the potential to make a heck of a lot of money and help some people in the process.
I met you probably about 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
When, I think I met you right after I sold Cherry. I was doing a training for a bunch of my roofing companies here in Bensalem.
Yep.
And I got the pleasure of watching you speak in front of about 100 of my employees at that time. What a captivating experience. Like, you know it, you understand it, you clearly love it. Can you talk about that experience? Because now we're friends. We talk on the phone. Shit, I'm not going to lie. I would love to have you with my LB Capital, right? You're an amazing sales trainer.
Thank you.
Can you talk about that experience? Because I was blown away. You didn't charge me anything. You came in for a full day and coached my team.
Well, I mean, you're a customer too. So I think at the end of the day, we want to help you win. I mean, if you're going to bless us with your business, then we're going to do everything within our power. At least we should, to try to help you get to an even higher level. So that's what it's really all about. As far as the energy is concerned, I mean, I'd be lying. Some days you leave and it's exhausting. But, you've got 100 people in the room and you've been on the other side of that situation where you listen to these boring ass people that you're just like, oh my God, how long is this thing going to be? So I try to keep it as engaging as possible, real high energy. I did a meeting last week, actually, I had 102 fever, and they were asking me, how are you going to do it? And I said, my goal is that they don't know that I have 102 fever because they didn't come to listen to a sick guy do a presentation. They came to, hopefully learn something that's going to help them win.
My question for you, SRS just got bought by Home Depot about 6 months ago, a year ago now, maybe?
It's going on about a year now, I think, yeah.
How's that transition be? Different, same? Were you kind of shocked? Did you see it coming?
I knew that there was something that was going to happen. I mean, there was sort of some grumblings. I'm not really in the know on a lot of the conversations of what was going to happen, but we kind of had a sense that there was something going on. But I think that for the most part, I have not spoken to anybody in the organization that's not incredibly energized by it and sees it as a great opportunity. The really cool thing is a year in, I mean, from my perspective, nothing's changed. I mean, you wouldn't even really know other than sometimes we have meetings and it might come up that they're going to have somebody there just to kind of peek in on it. But there's not a lot of changes that we're seeing.
It's almost like what's the old guy, the Warren Buffett thing? If it's working and it's making money, don't change it, right? Like when he buys companies, he's like, I just let them run themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is, no matter how you might want to describe it or maybe explain it, I mean, Home Depot has for many, many years now said that they wanted to make a dent in that pro market. And I think admittedly, they'd say they've struggled to do that.
Oh, without doubt.
SRS is a company that's been able to do very well in that market. So it just seemed like a really good opportunity for them to, acquire a company that's working and profitable and has a demonstrated record of growth year after year, and to say, hey, we want you guys to be the arm that's going to help us, do a better job on that pro segment. So it's just business as usual for us.
So you're doing a ton of sales training. I mean, and you're not just helping the SRS salespeople train. You're actually helping the roofing companies themselves train that are your clients. I think there's a misconception of what people don't realize you guys offer. Like, you'll come in to all my training classes when I have them, if we ask you to once a month, and you'll spend you just left my office. You were there for what, probably 3-4 hours?
Yeah. We're there this morning, sure.
And you're training everyone. All my offices around the country are virtually listening to you. I mean, that is priceless. Are a lot of people taking you up on that, or is it the more sophisticated roofer? Is it the more understanding roofer?
Yeah, I think the question is really more of who's getting the most out of it. The sophisticated roofer, like I know when I go in and I talk to your team this morning that you've got guys in the back of the room that are taking notes and they're figuring out, okay, these are the top 5 things that we're going to apply and hold our team accountable to. So that's the stuff that gets me really excited. Like when I can come in and work with your companies, I know that I'm working with a team of professionals that's going to figure out a way to take action on the stuff that we're training. It's the other guys that are the struggle, right? Those are the people that think, bring DeRosa in, he's going to fix everything. There's no easy button. You can train somebody how to do something, but at the end of the day, somebody on the other side of the door, the other side of that training room has got to hold people accountable to actually taking advantage of the stuff that they were trained to do and making sure that they're doing it at a sustainable and acceptable level. So I think that, there's a lot of people out there that want to do this. And I do try, because my time's limited, to vet some of them. I'll jump on a Zoom call with anybody and spend an hour or two or however much time they need just to kind of talk through the process. But if I'm going to come in and I'm going to actually invest time with you, I want to make sure that there's no misconceptions about me coming in and all of a sudden there's some magic button that's been pushed and your guys are now going to start closing at 50%. It doesn't happen like that.
I see a lot of these, I don't want to use shysters or scam artists or bullshit artists that say they're going to come in and they're going to help you with your sales training and your sales processes. And I'm sure some of it does work, right? They're charging $10,000 a day, $20,000 a day, whatever it may be for their time. But yet they don't have big companies themselves. Like, that's what I'm lost at. Can you talk to me? Like, for me, you know what I do. I take companies, I build them, and I sell them, right? I mean, I'm probably the first guy you've ever met in the space that's actually doing it, right? Like, just taking small companies.
Well, at a level that I'm seeing, yeah. And as quickly as you're doing it. Yeah.
But, like, why wouldn't these people, if they're that good at the sales training piece of it, why wouldn't they just do that? I'm asking you, because it seems like bullshit to me.
Yeah, I can't really speak to what their limitations are or why they're at where they're at. I think the one thing that I would caution listeners to think about is anybody that comes in and says, I'm going to teach you guys a process and a system, it's going to guarantee you that they're going to be able to sell more, that's bullshit. I mean, I can't come into your organization. All I can do is come in and provide you guys with information. Somebody's going to need to take that information and convert it into actual behaviors. The behaviors create habits. The habits drive to results. All we're doing is we're trying to make sure that people are able to execute that recipe. And I keep using the words sustainable and acceptable level. Are they able to do that over and over and over again? And that's just like, you're building businesses and you're taking them and you have a process that you plug them into. And within a certain period of time, you've now blown that business up to the point where you're ready to make a move. Right? Oh, yeah. Same thing is happening on the sales side. There's no easy button. So anybody that comes in, Lance, and says, we can do this, we're going to train your guys, they're going to be able to double their conversion rates. I, as a trainer, can't affect that. My information is worthless unless somebody takes action on it.
I mean, but I guess I'm looking at it from just, there's so much rhetoric in the roofing. You've been in this business for 10 years. I've only been in it for 3 years. I feel like the guy that just came and discovered America and it's like this wide open land because there's so much bullshit in this space, right? The manufacturers are very difficult to deal with, as you know. There's 3 distributors that can be difficult to deal with, right? Like it's a monopoly business, right? There's 7 shingle companies, 3 distributors that are nationwide that can handle your business. And then you have all these guys out there, these sales gurus, and they're on social media screaming and yelling from the rooftop and people are paying them. But really the small man's the one getting hurt because you're paying for these people and there's no change. But yet I see I've seen a few other salespeople, like we brought someone in from Beacon before also, and you guys actually care. You're trying, and you do say to my trainers and you say to my management team, if you aren't enforcing what we're doing, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. I'm not asking you to bash these people. Do you think they're just so full of shit and you should be very leery of them? Or do you think there is some benefit to some of them? Because why wouldn't you do it yourself? That's my whole thing. Like, I don't have a training company. You know, people ask me all the time to have a sales training course, right? Coaching course.
Oh, really?
I say, no, I make enough money selling businesses. If I can go make 20, 30 million a year, 40 million a year, whatever it is, 50 million a year by just selling companies, why would I do that? How much can you actually make from coaching?
You know, I wonder though, Lance, does the questions speak more to the issues with the people that are selling the crappy training, or does it speak more to the mindset of the owner that's looking for some quick fix to solve some problem? And maybe it's a little bit of both.
I agree. I think people think, that you're going to bring someone like you in 1 or 2 times, and that's where it ends, and it's great. And think, no, that's just where it's starting. The more you bring, you've probably been in my office now 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
At least in a year, right?
Yep.
I know you deal with Bill more than me, which I appreciate, but like that, for that being like that takes commitment on both sides. But we've seen the transformation. We've seen the help that you provided for us. Not only have I seen it in my sales numbers clearly across the country, I've now seen it in my leadership team, right? They go back to you. We video all your stuff, sure, as you know. And I don't know if you know, we make our salespeople watch it over and over again.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. They did it this morning as well. So
did they?
It's all good, man. Yeah.
Are you finding other companies doing this with you, or are you just kind of like, hey, I'm coming in and just?
I think it's a check in the box activity for some people. And again, I'm not trying to beat up on the people that are inviting me out to work with their business. I'm privileged and blessed to have the opportunity to go out and work with them. But sales training is not something that you just check in the box. And I also think too, Lance, part of the challenge too is you got a lot of business owners out there. And I remember there was a book I read many years ago by a guy named Michael Gerber. It was called The Entrepreneur, The E-Myth.
Mm-hmm. The E-Myth, it's a great book.
Yeah, he said that
the Allstate guy, right?
I don't know where he's from.
He's from Allstate.
But he said some contractors are really good technicians who suffer from an entrepreneurial seizure. And it's like, we're really good at our craft and our trade, but we don't necessarily have the skills to run a successful business. Well, I think that's equally true on the sales side. I think that we have a lot of business owners out there that are running a good business, but they don't know how to sell. They're uncomfortable with the idea of being a salesperson. They're just going out, they're bidding jobs, and then they're waiting for the customer to jump into the shopping cart. They don't know how to do that. So what they do is they bury themselves in the operations, and then they say, I'm going to just hire somebody to come in and do the sales training. And then they expect, because that training happened, that now they're going to have some, great windfall on the sales side. And it really doesn't happen.
You've been doing this for 10 years now. What's the difference between the companies that you see growing and not growing? You say, what's some of the top 2, 3 things you see?
Number one is technology. You got to be using technology, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, obviously I'm a service titan fan. I preach it from the ceiling. So I'm a technology company. I'm not even a roofing company.
So
that.
Didn't Vaynerchuk at the Roofing Process Conference said that technology is undefeated? Right? Think about that. That's the beauty of Gary Vee, right? He said technology is undefeated. He goes, you can choose to ignore it, but you're going to lose.
Oh yeah.
And he's true. And I think that you look at a company like a Service Titan, for example, if you're using that effectively, not only is it going to help you guys manage your customer relationships and keep track of your follow-ups and all that kind of stuff, but it provides metrics that should let you know whether or not your salespeople are executing at the acceptable level. And if they're not executing and hitting those numbers, then we can go in and we can coach them. And then the other element is, and look, I have no skin in the game. I talked about these guys at your conference. I have this sort of love-hate relationship with the Rilla guys. Mm-hmm. I love the technology. I just hate the fact that they weren't around 15 years ago when I was selling.
course.
And it's amazing to me the number of sales reps that'll say, or better yet, it's amazing the number of business owners that will say, well, my sales rep doesn't want to use it because he doesn't want Big Brother to watch him. It's like, are you kidding me? If you're not concerned about how you're executing your sales, calls to the point where you don't want to be able to read a transcript and identify where you went wrong and how you can grow, then maybe you're just not in the right career,
I had a sales rep, my number one sales rep in my HVAC company about a year and a half ago, and we installed Rilla, and I thought everybody was on it, and I thought it was done. And Bill came to me and said, this X name isn't on Rilla, and he refuses to use it. He doesn't want people to watch him or hear his calls. And Michael, my partner at the time, approved this, and I was baffled. So I called Mike, and I said, Mike, did you? He goes, yeah, he doesn't. He's like, you're our number one guy. We can't afford to lose him. I said, Mike, the problem is it's causing ripples among everyone else. They don't want to use it now. I said, you should want to have this. It's insurance that the homeowner can't say you said something that you didn't say, number one. Mm-hmm. It's making sure we're hitting our 5-star pledge to every customer. It's making sure we all get better out of our jobs. And right, that's our job.
Yep.
And he said, Lance, he's going to quit. I said, oh, he's going to quit? I was on the way to the office, Turnpike. He was literally outside in the parking lot when I pulled up to the office. And I said, X, thank you for everything. I appreciate you. Come and get your final check. Turn everything in. It was great working with you. He's like, are you firing me? I'm like, I didn't fire you. You fired yourself. Did it for like 15 people. They're like, what do you mean, how did I fire myself? And he actually said, I'm your number one salesperson. I said, no. You were my number one salesperson. I said, I appreciate everything, but you decided not to use Rilla. And Rilla, we've seen now the people that are using it, their close rates going up, their average order went up. I have a business to run. I can't cater my business to you. When you put your name out there and your credit lines out there and you have your own business, you can run it the way you want. But thank you. But no, you terminate yourself. I didn't terminate you. I fired him.
Yeah.
My number one sales guy.
And you probably in that moment, you boosted the culture, the whole culture within the organization, because they all knew we're all in it. This is, there's no entitlement here.
Well,
right?
At 51 years
No
of
pedestals.
age now that I am, and most people see my success now.
Yeah.
What people don't see is the 30 years prior to this, of the grinding, the failures, the decision-making process it took me to get here. No different than you sales training. You've probably seen almost every situation out there multiple times. Running businesses for the last 20 years, scaling them and growing them, I've seen almost every situation. And I know when someone's not with you, they're against you. Mm-hmm. And when someone's against you, no matter who it is, they have to go.
And it becomes a cancer that kind of permeates through the entire organization and bring you down.
Well, people don't want to see, listen, you always treat your best players a little bit different. I do believe that. People that go out of their way, people that see the mission, people that understand things, you're always going to treat them different. But when people aren't doing the right things to grow the company and make everyone else better around them, see, what people don't realize, the goal for your number one salespeople and your number two salespeople are to help train and inspire everyone else to be great salespeople. If you can't do that and you're only worried about yourself, I don't want you in my organization, because eventually the whole thing's going to crash and burn. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, yeah.
And so you, from an ideology standpoint, it's almost like the military, right? They teach everyone the next person's position above in case someone were to get hurt in battle, right? So they could take over and lead and command. You have to have the same business mindset. And I don't think people have that. I think people, let's talk about this. Roofing has changed drastically. Tell what you've seen in the last 10 years, the change in what you've seen.
I think, again, we fall back on the technology. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are starting to realize that this is something that they need to pay attention to.
What about private equity firms coming in? What do you think about
obviously
that? Not everyone knows. Talk about that.
Deal. Well, they listen to your podcast. I mean, it's a big deal. So yeah, I think that, what we're saying is it's becoming almost like a big cottage industry of all these PE companies that are coming in and are trying to gobble up as much businesses as they can. I think what's interesting is from some conversations, a lot of people that think maybe they're worth a heck of a lot more than they really are, because there's, this is my heart, this is my soul, but the money doesn't make sense. I'm just interested in gaining a perspective on, where this all settles down in the end. You've got these 20 different firms out there that are buying up a bunch of roofers. at the end of the day, let's assume that you got a couple of legacy roofers out there that are just trying to stay on their own, and then you've got everybody else that's gobbled up by all these other industries. Where does it go from there?
Well, so what PE does is they take funds, they take pension funds, they take retirements. Like, you'd be surprised. I'd be willing to bet you Home Depot has money involved in some of these funds, right? Like, it just is what it is. So what they do is they go buy for, say, 6x or 5x or 7x based on your EBITDA, right? And what happens is it's arbitrage. Now you have 50 organizations, right? And they're going to sell it for 13, 14, 15x. Say they pay 7x on average when they get to, and there's levels to it, right? So the $50 million EBITDA platform is going to sell for a certain turn. A $100 million EBITDA turn is going to sell to, and that's when you get to like 100 million, there's only a few buyers out there, right?
Sure.
You're going to have the Morgan Stanleys of the world, the Bain Capitals, the Black Rocks. These guys are the guys that are going to come in and buy that. But before that, they're just literally just charging money, and they're beating the return of the S&P, right? And that's the whole thing. We're going to beat the S&P. We're going to give you back money every year. We'll continue to grow. And then when they recap, everyone gets paid out some serious amount of money. That's why I roll up my money a lot of times into the deal. I mean, every deal I've ever done, besides one, I've gotten to roll my money up, and I made out well with it. And I'd advise that to anyone. But yeah, kind of like technology doesn't lose. Private equity firms, not search funds, right? Search funds are different. You'll see 30-some people on the cap table. It's not a fund. And you got to understand the difference between a search fund and a private equity firm, because there are big differences. And search funds come and act like they're PE people, and they're really not good people, the majority of them. No, they're not. Right? They don't have the resources. The thing that I say about PE firms is they have the resources, because you got to think about this. They're going to do anywhere between 20. A real PE firm can do anywhere between 15 to 30 to 40 deals a year, right? Mm-hmm. With that, there's going to be some risk to them. Not everyone's going to be a winner, but they have the resources to ride it out and make sure it stays a winner, right? They don't want to be shutting down businesses they bought for. They can reinvest money, reallocate resources. When you sell it to a search fund person, they might be having 7, 10 little bullshit businesses, but they don't have any funds. Because what they did is they went to Live Oak Bank, which is #1 bank for small businesses, and then they lever your money, right? So they'll lend up to 50% of whatever the net was, and they'll come up with the rest of the money, and they'll do earn out, and then you have escrow. So really, you don't have as much money as you're coming, and you really bought your business on your own money. And then when they don't hit your earn out, it's a big fight, and it's just a bad situation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the play for PE, to answer your question directly, is the recap, and that's when they all get cashed out, and that will happen. I mean, some of these private equity firms are just too big to lose. The Vertexes of the world, the Persian Capitals of the world, the Trivest, et cetera, et cetera. Morgan Stanley has one right now with All-Star Roofing. Like,
you think at some point they'll all be rolled up into 1 or 3 of these really big dogs out there? Or
I mean, eventually it could be that way. I mean, you look at the HVAC space. Apex is big. There's like about 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and they keep selling to the next level up of banks. But yeah, I mean, do I think there'll all be one? No. But do I think there'll be maybe 4 or 5 players in that space at one point that owns the bulk? Do I always think there's going to be a space for a small business operator that knows how to run a business and grow it? Yes, I do. And they'll be able to sell it to private equity when they're done. Yeah, absolutely. I think somebody could go out and start an HVAC, roofing, electrical business, window, door, landscaping, fencing, painting business, and be able to scale it to that 10, 20, 30 million, 40 million, wherever you want to scale it to, get to somewhere between 2 and 10 million in EBITDA, and make yourself a nice check.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I always think it's funny too, even with your process conference, but the theme was like build it to sell it. And there's guys that like I would talk to and they go, I don't know if I want to sell my business. And I go, but don't you want your business to be running at a level that makes you valuable enough to be sold? Like, and that's the key, right?
So I just spoke to, like, I'm all about if you don't want to sell your business to private equity. But if you're going to give it to your kids, leave your kids a business and not a headache. And most people leave their children headaches or nothing at all. Most businesses, as you know, are only a month or 2 away from going out of business. They're leveraged. They're not cash heavy. They don't have the resources. They're not growing. You look at a person that was doing $1 million for the last 10 years. They think that's a good business, and they become comfortable. And they're used to having that million.
And they wonder why they can't find employees. They wonder why they can't find the right things. I think, when you are going to scale your business, like we talk about the roofing business process, you want to make sure it's built to sell by anyone. And that means that you don't have to sell it, but you want to make sure you're giving your kids a profitable company that if they don't want it, they can sell it at any time. And you run it like a business. I'm going to give you an example. I introduced someone to one of the private equity firms. They were going through the process. He did a lot of money in cash. He did a lot of money and this is common for small business guys, right? They want to keep the cash instead of putting it back into the business. Doesn't want to pay taxes. They want to pay as little as possible. See, and the private equity firm's like, well, listen, man, like you can't prove half the stuff you're saying, and we can't pay you on it. He's like, well, I'm not going to sell it and wait 18 months to 2 years. Now he has to reshift his whole business. I'm helping him through it. So I'm just a true believer in run your business the right way from the beginning, and you never have to look over your shoulder. And yes, does it suck paying taxes? You and I both know that. How do you like paying taxes on your money?
Yeah, nobody does, but you got to do it the right way.
What would you say the difference is between, because you're in all different type of shops as you go around, you travel. You were just at IRE, you spoke there, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir.
You have people that walk up to you that are 500,000. You have people that are 5 million, 1 million, 2 million, 10 million. What are some of the characteristics you're seeing in these different people, and why are some growing faster than others? Besides technology, because technology isn't going to build it for you.
Yeah, I think that the tier one guys, the top third of contractors in the marketplace, those are the guys that have built processes and systems and are running a legitimate. I don't mean to say that the other businesses are not legitimate, but I mean it's more of a business structure of running a business. Those are the guys out there that have onboarding and training, and they're making sure that they're setting clear expectations, holding their people accountable. I think then you have the middle third guy, and that's the person that's built a really good business, but doesn't want to do anything that's going to disrupt what they perceive to be currently working. You might have a guy, for example, like we'll talk and they'll say, well, I'm converting 25% of the jobs that I'm, bidding on. And we're saying, well, we can get your sales up to, 35% or maybe 40%. And they're like, yeah, I want to do that, but I just don't want to mess up the 25% that I'm currently leveraging. You know what I'm saying? It's currently getting. And then the bottom third guy, I think those are the people that are just, they're not really interested in changing because I just don't think they have, and I don't want to say mindset because it implies brain power. It's not a function of brain power. It's just mindset. Like, where do you want your business to be in the next 3 to 5 years? They're just happy. I've got cash in my pocket. I got a new boat. I got a new truck. Everything's fine. And they just don't really see a lot of reason to want to change and hire people. And those are the people, Lance, that I really worry about. Because those are the guys that are wearing, 25 different hats. They're putting in 100 hours a week, trying to figure out how they can, keep everything running. And I mean, that's unhealthy. It's not sustainable. It's really stressful. I mean, just, a guy like you could take a business like that, put a little structure into that, and give those guys the opportunity to take a weekend off and not feel guilty about it.
100%.
Right? And you said that. I mean, I thought some of the posts that you put out that were probably the most powerful for me were the people who were saying that, like, they, you're running a business that nobody wants to buy. My father-in-law was a great example of that, and I have nothing but love and respect for him. He had a really great business, but the business could not exist unless he got up at 4 a.m. and came home at 8 o'clock at night, and he would have to go in on the weekends to check on things. I mean, this was a guy who ran a butcher. It was a slaughterhouse that eventually just became a purveyor of like fine meats in Buffalo. He literally got the refrigeration license for the business so that he didn't have to pay a refrigeration man to go in and check on the equipment. So when it came time for him to want to sell his business, people were like, I don't want that job. You're not selling me a business. You're selling me a job. I don't need another job. And he wound up working it out, and it worked out fine for him. But man, you got to ask yourself in a lot of cases, do you own a business or do you own a job? And if you own a job, most people aren't going to want to buy that because they already got a job.
I mean, you saw today you came into my office, 100 plus people in there, and I'm not there. It's Monday.
Yep.
And I don't feel guilty about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just, but I think that's where a lot of people think they got to be the guy. They got to be the guy. I mean, you must hear this all the time. No one's going to sell the way I do. No one's going to care the way I do. No one's going to install it the way I do, right? All these things that people lie to themselves about. And I always ask this one question. If I die, would the show go on? And the answer is?
Yeah, for you, yeah.
The show goes on.
Yeah, show goes on.
The show goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you have to make sure that you build businesses so when you die, just the show goes on.
But what about the guys that think, hey, I want my employees to think like an owner. And it's like, don't you think on some respect you've got to say, but they're not the owner. They're not going to have your same mindset and passion.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, I'm fortunate. I have a leadership team that's been with me for 20 years, the majority of them, right?
Yep.
So they have a lot of autonomy. I believe in the innate ability, if you give people the responsibility to make the right decisions, they will. I believe there's some people that don't. They're cancers. They're self-serving. They're not worried about it. Is anyone going to build your business for you? Absolutely not. No one's going to build your business for you. That's impossible. You have to build your business. You have to be the driver. Am I the driver of all my organizations? Of course. I manage all by P&Ls, KPIs. You saw my son is in here, and he's going to learn P&Ls right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're working on P&Ls, right? What 11-year-old kid is learning P&Ls?
Yeah.
Right? But that's more important to me than actually school for my children, right? So I look at things very differently of you got to be the driver, but you can't be in the driver's seat. There's a big difference. Driver means I'm telling you what's expected. I mean, think about this. Red Bull has a racing car, right? Right?
Yep.
Do you see the president of Red Bull in that thing? Probably doesn't even go to half the races.
Yeah.
Right? I don't go to 90% of our meetings because that's just not how business works. It should be your leadership team knows your vision gets put down, and they execute. And if they can't execute, you got to bring in a leader that can. I mean, think about this. You work for SRS. When's the last time you met the president of Home Depot?
I've not met him, had the privilege of meeting him yet.
But yet you get up and you still train all of his people across the country, happily thriving and willing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a cultural thing, too. And I think that's just for a sense, and for those of you who haven't been to Lance's office, when you go in there, you can't help but get a sense of the energy in there. I think everybody there feels like they're just a part of something that's really big, and there's a lot of positivity in that room. We don't see a lot of negativity. And I think that's something that you project onto them. I think that you care about them. They subsequently care about you. And then the mission becomes, we've all got to win this thing together. And that's powerful. That's hard to do.
It's funny you say that because we talk about the mission all the time. The mission is more important than one person's goals or ideals.
Mm-hmm. And
we say it all the time. And, we'll fire somebody and terminate the minute we feel like their mission becomes a priority over our mission. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about driving a sales culture of growth. I think a lot of these smaller businesses don't understand they're a sales organization, right? You're a technology sales organization. You can argue which one comes first, sales or technology, right?
Yeah.
What do they have to do to get that mojo going, that let's build a sales organization? Because you can't build something without sales. Can you talk about that?
No doubt. Yeah, I think it starts with showing that you can win. Winning is contagious, and I think it creates energy. I think part of it too is what I try to do is I try to build the recipe that I think is going to put the salesperson or the company in the best position to win the sale. But one of the things that is often lacking outside of the post-training accountability stuff is it's amazing, Lance, how many people I've worked with where the sales manager or business owner doesn't set clear expectations of what it is that, you start an organization, you have a big picture goal. I want to do $10 million this year. You're going to work that number backwards to determine how many projects I need to sell at what margin, how many leads I need to run at my current conversion rate. That's going to tell me what I need to do this year to put me in the best position to hit 10 million. That number should be trickled down to every rep in the organization, and every rep should be told, this is what I need you to do this year. It's amazing. Like I had to tell a story about a guy that I did some training for a customer in the Buffalo, New York area. This is a longtime family business. I've known about them for many years. And there was a sales rep at the table. No matter what I said, he was negative on it. Oh, my customers are all about price. Oh, that's not going to work in this market. Oh, have you ever sold in this market? That kind of stuff. So at the end of the meeting, the owner of the business said, what did you think of Jimmy? And I said, well, Jimmy's a challenge. Jimmy needs some help. And he goes, well, Jimmy's been here since my dad started the business. It's a family business. And he goes, I'm just really loyal. And I said, look, I can appreciate loyalty. I go, but your business is in business for one reason only, and it's to make money and to make everyone else's, your employees' lives better. I said, he goes, well, what do you think I should do? Should I fire him? I go, let's start with this. Have you ever sat Jimmy down and said, Jimmy, here's what I need you to do? I go, just sit Jimmy down and say, Jimmy, I need you to sell 3 roofs a week. Can you sell 3 roofs a week for me? So he goes, I'll give it a shot. Well, I ran into that customer at the local home show 6 months later. I said, how's Jimmy doing? He says, I told him I need him to sell 3 roofs a week. He's now selling 6 a week. But it was all because the owner just took 2 minutes to say, here's what I need you to do. Are you able to do that for me? Now, the reality is, if Jimmy turned around and said, I'm not willing to do that, are you loyal to that person at that point in time? Or do you now have to make a business decision and say, Jimmy, I'm sorry, but in order for us to keep you, this is what we need you to do. So much of this, like Lance, I'm telling you, man, I'll work with some of the top roofers in the country and I'll ask, what are your conversion rates? People don't know. How many doors are you required to knock a day? There's no expectation. It's like, how, I ask, are we playing checkers or are we playing chess here? What are we doing?
Or just asked a question. We were up in New York last week for a private equity meeting up there with a bunch of private equity firms, biggest ones around the country for Service Titan, about 50 of them. Now I'm not private equity, but he asked me to come just because of how many companies I've sold now. He wanted me to look at it, which I'm always grateful for. But he asked a question. How many of you know how much it costs to show up at a customer's door before you even walk through the door? How many of you know, right? Now I knew. And mine's somewhere between, depending on the month, between the aggregate of all my organizations, between $800 and $1,200. Meaning what I pay for the lead, what I pay for my CSRs by the hour, what I pay for my production team, what my fixed costs are. I'm somewhere between $800 to $1,200 for every time we pull into someone's driveway. Mm-hmm. No offense to Jimmy or anyone else. When you start paying that $800 or $1,200 for that lead opportunity, you can start making the decision-making process on how we're going to do things. Yeah. I mean, how many customers could tell you that, John, do you believe? How much it costs for them to pull up into a driveway to sell the lead?
Yeah, I think some would probably have a good idea of what their lead cost is, but a cost for an issued lead, not a cost of a landed lead.
Landed?
Yeah.
All your fixed costs. What am I paying for? Health insurance. Right? All that gets put into the bucket. Mm-hmm. All of it.
Yep.
And you have to divide that by how many calls you run a month. And that's what it's costing you per opportunity.
Yep.
It's a serious number, John.
Yeah, and as a business owner, right, we want to make sure that our salespeople are doing the things that they need to do to give us a good return on that investment. Because a lot of guys will go, I don't want to micromanage my team. This isn't micromanaging. This is just making sure that your team has the talent and the skills to make sure you get return on your investment and they make some money too.
When someone tells you they don't like to be micromanaged, what they're telling you is, I don't like to be held to a standard. Never forget that.
Yeah.
When someone says, I don't like to be micromanaged, that's their way of telling you, I don't like to be held to a standard. Do you think I care if anyone looks at my calendar? Do you think I care if anyone asks where I am? Do you believe that, John?
No, I don't think you care.
Or do you know I hold myself to the same standard I expect other people to?
Yeah, that's what I believe. Mm-hmm.
And that's where people, when someone says, well, I got to come in every day, or I got to be in this meeting, or you want to see what I'm doing every day, I'm not seeing what you're doing every day to make sure you're working. I'm seeing to make sure, number one, we're on track and we have the same vision and it's going the right way. Number two, to make sure we're not wasting time on things that aren't important. Busy work versus productive work. They're two different things. Number three, I want to make sure I can coach you every step of the way at first to make sure we both understand each other's expectations. And this way, I don't lose great leaders. So is it, am I micromanaging you, or am I trying to put you in the best position possible to be successful?
Yeah. Well, and I think they've got to believe that too, right? And I think that, but here's the thing, right? I mean, we talk about the accountability and building that sales culture. I think if the communications are set up front and we're saying, hey, look, here's what we need you to do this year. Are you able to do that, Lance? And you say, oh yeah, I can do that. Okay, work out a plan for me and show me what it's going to take for you to be able to drive those results and what you need from me. It's your plan. It's not my plan. Now, all I'm doing is I'm looking at it and I'm saying, yeah, this makes sense to me. You think you can do all this? Yeah, I can do it. Are you going to make it happen? Yeah, I'm going to make it happen. Now, all I've got to do as your manager is I've got to just say, hey, where are we at relative to all the things that you said that you were going to do?
Oh, yeah.
Not the things that I'm telling you to do. I think that's where guys go wrong. Like you have, I remember, like years ago when I would work for just bad managers who would want to put you in a box and say, I want you to do this, 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 and this. So it was like almost like a reverse delegation.
Of course.
Well, you do this for me, but I'm now going to tell you step by step of exactly how I want you to execute this task. If you didn't believe in the task, and it failed, it was like, hey man, it's not, I didn't think it was going to work. I just did it because that's what you told me to do. Let them build the plan.
I give a guy credit, probably. I think we have it on tape. We got to go find it. About 7-8 months ago, you met Dean Minardi. He works for me, right? Mm-hmm. And he worked for me before he sold, and he was my partner. And for probably like 4 or 5 months, I kept asking Dean to do certain things. I kept trying to tell him why, and he just wouldn't do it. So finally, one day, I brought him in. I'm like, Dean, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, everyone else does what I ask him to do. You blatantly just won't do it. Now we're at the point where he's going to leave, right? Like, it's just that simple, right? I'm like, can you just tell me why you don't do what I asked you to do? And he goes, because I don't think you know what you're doing. Oh. Right, like, just, we have it on film somewhere, don't we? I'm always positive. We got to find the clip. And he's like, because I just don't think you know what you're doing. And I'm like, but Dean, you've seen everything I built. He goes, I think you're great at business. He goes, I just don't think you know roofing. And then when we got to about on pace to do 20 million, he walked in the room and he's like, you know what? You do know what you're doing. He's out of your apology. This is probably 3-4 months later, right? Because I respect that, Dean, but you know, we probably could have truthfully done 27 or 28, maybe even 30, if we weren't behind the 8 ball on things I was being told was done and not done. But I did give him a lot of credit because not many people will say, I just don't believe you know what you're doing. And I'd rather have that answer than someone lie to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like, I give him a lot of credit. Like, I wasn't mad at him. I actually respected it. I said, because Bill was like, what the fuck? I'm like, guys, you should be glad someone has the sack to say that to you, because most people just lie to you and give you a canned answer.
Yeah, and that doesn't help anybody.
No.
It just has them be more victimized and feeling beat up too, and you don't want that either.
Let's talk about this. People think their companies are worth more than they are. You must hear it every day about how much people's companies are worth. You got one guy in a truck. He's doing the sales. He's doing the PM. He's at $4 million. Doesn't even know what his EBIT is. Or his seats are in a shoebox. He's keeping the cash. But I'll tell you his company's worth $10 million. Can you tell me how disillusioned people are out there right now? Because I see it every day. I'm just kind of curious what you're saying.
Yeah, I just think that from what I've heard, and I'm not as close to that, I don't really look at people's P&Ls.
Well, I'm sure they're talking to you as you're talking about selling what their companies are worth.
Yeah, the feedback that I'm hearing is guys that'll go in and say that they were considering, the private equity route, but my company's worth way more than they're valuing my business at. And, again, I'm not the guy that's equipped to kind of have that conversation, but, I got to believe that there's probably a little bit of truth to what the private equity guys are saying, because, we're close to it, man. This is our baby. This is my thing, and this is the company my dad built. And I think it's definitely done well for me. So it's got to be worth a heck of a lot more than they're telling me it is. And, there's a process to that though, right? I mean, it's not, you've got to develop that relationship with the companies you're working with and they trust you.
Listen, when people are handing you people hand you $40 million, $50 million, $20 million. I don't care if someone's handing you $10 million. I should go back to like one of my smaller deals was 17, 18 million, right? Like when people are handing you that kind of money, they want to make sure they know who you are. They can trust you. What you're selling them is legit. So they have a due diligence that some are more than others, right? Some are overboard, and I would advise people not to do that, right? Like some just woodpecker you to death, right? I only had one organization ever woodpecker me. Neri and Jacob, fortunately, happened to go through the honor of watching that, where I actually killed the LOI 2 weeks before closing. Like, think about that. And I'm not talking for like 10, 15, 20 million. I killed the LOI because just the constant barrage of, I felt like I was in like a movie or like in a prison cell, and just the water just dropping on your head, one drop at a time, and my hands are tied and I can't get the water from just dripping on my head, right? Like, and it was just so where I killed the LOI. And I don't think people understand the scrutiny you go under. They know everything about it, and they should. Like, I'm all about it because all these people are delusional in what they think their companies are worth. So I'm all about it. I'm all about put them under scrutiny, go through the process, quality of earnings, full due diligence, legal, everything else, which you have to make sense. But But people will sit there and think their companies are way more because of what you said. It's personal to them.
Mm-hmm.
It should never be personal. It's not your baby. It's a business. And here's something that will shock you. When I sold One SEO, probably had close to 100 employees at the time, more or less. And when we announced it the morning of, and I said, hey, listen, we sold, and the search fund people that I sold to, that's the one search fund I ever sold to, went and were there. Meeting probably was about a half hour. I walked out. This is 15 years of my life. 6 people walked up to me, congratulated me out of 100. Everybody else never reached out, never. And it just goes to show you. And I said to everyone, when I left AT&T, the same thing happened. A few people. When you leave SRS, you'll see the same thing happens. A few people will show you their true colors, that they actually did like you and care about you and keep a relationship with you. And it wasn't just about what you could do for them. And it's sad, but that is the truth of what happens when you sell. So you got to know that when you go to build your business, that you're giving, they're giving, and it's a two-way relationship. That relationship is now taken over by a new private equity firm, and that's who they're going to give their relationship to, not you anymore. Does that make sense at all,
Oh,
John?
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. So when people say it's business, it really is business. I'm not mad at anyone that didn't come up and congratulate me or say goodbye. Or I understood they were nervous. They were thinking about themselves.
Some anxiety, probably.
They're like, what's going on? There's so many thoughts that go through their head. And it was my job during that transition to make sure they knew, hey, CJ's a great CEO. Thank God she is. She's a great person. You have your whole leadership team here in place. Nothing changes. I'm just moving on with my life. And like, that's your job as a leader. It shouldn't be about you. But make no mistake, your eyes are open. Every organization I've ever sold, you kind of just move on.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
It is.
Think about this. You were at your other job for how many years at IKO?
Probably about 9, maybe a little shorter than that.
And you probably talked to 100 plus employees there, correct? In those 9 years?
Oh, yeah.
How many do you still talk to?
Well, I mean, if I see them, we talk.
Well, of course, if you
But,
see them.
I wouldn't say we had best friend status with many of them. But
But do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really no different from when you leave. But people want to say these are. And what's amazing to me is a lot of these founders don't actually try and help out any of their employees and give them a small bonus or anything. They just keep all the money instead of trying to take care of their team to help them build the company.
Sure.
Because the founders think they built the company. The founders never built the company. Remember that. It's the team you were smart enough to put in place, build your company.
Yeah. No kidding.
Talk about that. Do you think a lot of people believe that, or do you think most founders think they built it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the thought process. I mean, I think there are those gems, right? I mean, I can think of some people that would bring their sales manager in and say, I want to give them a piece of the business. I want to, kind of reward them because they were a key part in what we're developing here. But I don't know that people. I'll be honest with you, Lance. I think the roofing industry, for the most part, is filled with some just really good people.
That I agree with you.
I mean, I've been on the window side of the industry, and it can be really dirty and nasty in that world, But I think roofers, for the most part, are just really hardworking people. They're trying to make a difference for themselves and for their customer. And I think that it's not to suggest that there's not some scumbags out there. There certainly are.
I think it's less than
for the most
2%.
part,
I think they're the ones that get the most noise there, like the most press.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I love Dimitri, he's a friend of mine. I'm like, Dimitri, why do you even put the spotlight on these people? Like, what? You don't know the whole story, number one. I say them all the time. There's 2 sides to every story, and then 3 sides, and there's the truth, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I love Dimitri. I'm not being rude. Like, I'm friends with him at my Buds conference. But he knows how I feel about the whole scam alert, putting people on blast. Like, everything I do is positive, as you can tell. Like, I'm a positive guy, nothing negative. Like, I won't even focus on the negative because, like you said, 95% of all roofers, I believe, are good people. I only met a few scumbags.
Yeah.
And no offense, I'm not the police. I'm not trying to
Exactly.
go about your day. What's the best piece of advice anyone's ever given you up to this point in time? For sales, for life, anything?
Wow, I don't know if there was ever really a moment where I got advice. I can share an experience that was pretty eye-opening. I used to work for sold estimating software to auto body shops for ADP for about a year, and was in the company for about 90 days, hadn't sold anything. The VP flew in, asked me to, I thought I was getting canned, asked me to build a plan. I need you to build me a 30-day plan on what you're going to do to improve your selling skills, your product knowledge, your industry knowledge, and your activities to drive the results that we want. I built the plan. I sent it to him. Never missed quota again. What was interesting is when I ran into him at a regional meeting months later, I said, hey, his name was Dick, ironically. I said, hey, Dick, I hope not sure if you noticed, but I've never missed quota since we had that conversation. You know, I need a little dopamine fix. And he said, yeah, I know that. And I said, well, hey, Dick, I got to ask you a question. I go, I sent you my plan. And I go, and I never heard anything from it. I go, you never gave me any feedback. And he said, well, can I be honest with you? And I went, yeah. What do you think he told me?
He said your plan. He was going to follow up if you didn't come through with it.
Yeah, he goes, I never read your plan. I go, what do you mean you didn't read my plan? He goes, it wasn't my plan. He goes, that was your plan. He goes, I could tell by the results whether or not you had the right plan. And then he said this, and this was really telling, is he says, and look, as much as I appreciate you wanting to shine a light on the fact that you've hit quota, he said, you got to realize that your quota does nothing more than justify the cost of having you on the payroll. He goes, if you want my attention, he goes, see me at President's Club. And I was like, oh. But ironically, what was interesting is that whole exchange really taught me about just the importance of being accountable. You know, like it's all up to me. If I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to get out of my sales slump, if I'm going to take my sales to the next level, if I'm going to get the attention of my manager, it's got to be something that I'm going to do. There's no gimmies out there. I've got to make it happen for myself. And I think that was the moment. And I went through that process of trying to figure out what is it going to take for me to, take this environment where I wasn't selling anything. I just couldn't get it done to the point where I was actually able to exceed quota on a consistent basis. It all came down to me and what I was going to do.
I know you got to go. What's the best piece of advice you'd give to someone that feels they're not a salesperson? You own a roofing company, you feel you're not a salesperson. Home service, windows, doors, HVAC, doesn't matter. What piece of advice, if they said, John, I'm not a salesperson, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think what I would suggest is you could be the best craftsman in the world, but it's not going to mean shit to anybody unless you can sell that. I mean, honest to God. So I don't care, and as much as people are proud of what they can do from a trade perspective, and some guys create some beautiful stuff. You've got to be able to sell it, and you might not think that you're a salesperson, but how many times over the course of a day are you selling something? You're selling your wife on where you want to go out to dinner or go on vacation. You're selling your kids on the need for them to study and do their homework. You're selling all kinds of people. You're selling your employees on the need for them to do things that are going to help you guys achieve your goal. I would just say this, if they're so adamantly opposed to the idea of being a salesperson and say, I'm not a salesperson, they really need to dial in and figure out where does that come from? What is the perception problem that they have? Because it's a huge problem in selling. People think selling is a dirty word. I don't want to be a used car, pushy salesperson. And if that's what you think selling is, you're literally going to do with everything within your power to protect your core values, and you're not going to sell.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, listen, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, man. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you, John?
Just DeRosa at SRSDistribution.com.
Thank you for everything you've done to help build my team. I appreciate it, brother.
Anytime.